I hate partisan hackery and selective outrage. And you should too. I'm Bernie Bro, and I am going to explain all this to you. As I said, I hate selective outrage and partisan hackery. It gets on my last nerve. It pisses me off because it doesn't make you wonderful and a person of honor. It makes you an emotional child. As a general rule, that's what partisan hackery is. It's all about being an emotional child. And I'm gonna tell you, I used to be that way myself. I used to search for other faults, just faults and negativity on the other side, just to reinforce my belief system. Oh, I don't have to look too hard to the other side. There's enough that I disagree with, broadly speaking, with the Republican Party and what I would call movement conservatism, which movement conservatism can be defined as whatever Stephen Crowder or Ben Shapiro or George W. Bush or Rush Limbaugh, Mark Levin are into, or Glenn Beck are into at the moment. I'm not about that. I'm not about that at all. And I'm not into the cliche liberalism of Hollywood celebrities that virtue signals about how wonderful they are either. I feel like IQ points are taken away from me either way. So just to let you know that I don't particularly think too much of partisan hackery. Uh, I am going to ask each one of you nicely. Do not call me a centrist for saying this, because I abhor centrists as a general rule. Not on a personal basis, but as a political tactic. I collectively despise centrists. Although I do think that most of us have a little bit of centrism in us. There are a few issues, very few issues, where I either am not passionate on, or I may take an approach of, well, maybe the bland people from both parties who wants to meet halfway are the sensible ones on whatever issue it is, and it depends on the issue. Just depends on what the issue is. Where a spineless, soft, mushy middle ground would be the answer. But I would say, from my perspective, more times than not, um, I pretty much frown on finding too much compromise and bipartisanship. Now, bipartisanship. Um, Ron Falcone, who's on the Jimmy Dore show, gave a very wonderful description of the term bipartisanship. And from a political mindset, I agree with him. Usually within Washington, D.C., bipartisanship can be translated into, hey, the Republicans in Congress got an idea, and the Democrats are like, well, yes, let's go ahead and do that. That's what bipartisanship is to me. So I don't particularly respect politicians who go overboard to seek bipartisanship. Thankfully, one of the more positive aspects of the 2020 Democratic primaries was how quick John Delaney's attempt to become the Democratic nominee uh, just went down the tubes. And let me put it this way: John Delaney is so bland that he makes Joe Biden look like Bernie Sanders by comparison. He makes he makes Amy Klobuchar look like Ilhan Omar by comparison. That's how bland he is. He is he was the Joe Lieberman of the 2020 campaign, but even less relevant. Thank God that mindset was quickly rejected. But anyway, getting to the subject at hand, what you can see with the COVID crisis, and the police brutality that's going on around the country, you can see where partisan lines are being divided, and people are drawing that line and being very tribalistic about it on both sides. On the left, you have the left these days saying, "Oh, stay inside your house. Don't go to your job. Wear your mask. Can't be on the streets after a certain amount of hours." Now, I do not think that as a leftist that some of these politicians, like the governors and state legislatures in some of the more blue states, are imposing these laws. I don't think that they're trying to impose Big Brother or anything like that. I think that they do have uh, public health concerns. They're legitimate, but I think they go overboard. It's overreaching. And yeah, maybe the right might have a little bit of points in it when it says start to open everything back up. But I do not think it's any attempt to impose a dictatorial government and to control people's movements. No, 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 no. I do favor kind of opening things back up, and that's where I'm a centrist. I say, use precautions. I wear a mask sometimes, partly because I have to, and partly I do it for safety measures. Um, I think it was okay to close down everything at first. Now I say, give this a shot, and you can't live life totally risk free. Um, so there's where I am a centrist. Let's kind of open everything back up. But even when we were closed down, um, our politicians from both parties did the federal response was as ass backwards as one could get it. Instead of giving every American a UBI, Universal Basic Income, and enacting a temporary Medicare for all at the very least, what did they do? They looted the damn treasury. Corporate America came made out like bandits, um, and America's got little to nothing for it. And the one thing I can tell you, I don't know how the election in November will turn out with what's going on with the COVID and what's going on right now with some of the rioting around the country. Now, on the right, while the right, um, while the right was sitting there complaining about curfews and lockdowns and staying in your home and all that, and they they virtue signal themselves and wallow in the term liberty as if they're for liberty. But now you're hearing the right wing calling on Trump, wanting to get law and order, shoot down them looters, impose the curfews, get here, I mean, their response is just as well, probably a little bit worse because some of them do want looters to get shot down in the streets without even realizing with the police brutality that's rampant around this country that this is why it happened. And it was a combination of the lockdowns and the police brutality, which is looking like it's going to make the year 2020 look like a long, hot summer. I have told people that lately that we're reliving the year 1968. The Democratic Convention could be the next Chicago 1968 over there in Milwaukee. Um, in 1960s, it was 68. It was uh, civil rights, and it was the war in Vietnam. In 2020, it's police brutality again connected with civil rights, and it is economic inequality, which is actually pretty much universal all across America, regardless of demographics. With regard to the selective outrage, we could say both domestically and globally as it relates to the United States. With the election of Obama at 28, his reelection in 2012, what did the right wing do? They went and accused Obama of being a secretly Kenyan-born Muslim trying to destroy Western civilization. That's what they were doing. And and then when Donald Trump won in the year 2016, what are Democrats doing? They're basically saying Trump is tied with Vladimir Putin. He's tied in with Russia. See, both Obama is not a Kenyan-born Muslim, and Trump is not connected with Russia. And I'm being consistent, and I'm not being partisan because I did not vote for Obama in 2008 nor 2012, and I did not vote for Donald Trump in the year 2016. I normally oppose any president that's in the White House at the moment. That's just how I am. Call me contrarian, but that's just how it is. I'm usually pretty much opposing anybody who's sitting at the White House at the moment because I think that anybody who sits there in the Oval Office, they're usually a sack of shit, and being a sack of shit is what brought them in there. And if you're a good person, there's no way you can win the presidency. Look what they did to Bernie Sanders in 2008, excuse me, 2016 and 2020. And look what they did to Tulsi Gabbard in the Democratic primary, too, who was my second choice. I, and I could still tell you right now that it would have been awesome to see Bernie Sanders and Tulsi Gabbard team up. But that's not even going to happen under the best of circumstances. But anyway, so you got a lot of partisan outrage going on. You got what you got the right wing calling Ilhan Omar an anti-Semite for making a negative comment about the group APAC, which was nothing anti-Semitic about it. And I'm probably more sympathetic toward Israel more so than Ilhan Omar, but I still have my criticisms of the country. But I don't think that there was anything that Omar said that could be construed as anti-Semitic at all. However, why are people on the Republican side upset over Ilhan Omar's words when Pat Buchanan's words in the past toward Israel and toward Jewish lobby and all that were more toxic than Ilhan Omar's word? Why? Because Ilhan Omar is a Somalian-born Muslim, and they were like, Somalian-born Muslim, a dark-skinned woman. Well, yeah, she's obviously going to have those feelings. That's what they think. That's exactly what they think, and I call that racism right there. Um, but there's no outrage from the right when Steve Scalise, Louisiana, says, "I am David Duke without the baggage." Think about that term. I am David Duke without the baggage. If you're saying you're David Duke without the baggage, you got some fucking baggage on you. And as I said, I do not like partisan outrage, as I stated. Um, Foreign policy. Iran is not a good nation. I admit that. But but the United States is stupid to have the sanctions against Iran. It was stupid to walk out of the peace deal with Iran. But you see, what happened is you have a Republican Party who's beholden to the Christian right, really wants the United States to encourage to invade Iran, and they have a special hatred for Iran that's based on misinformation and ignorance. Um, I'm no fan of the government. Um, they do things I do not like. I mean, my goodness, they crack down on trade unions. They crack down on leftists. They execute homosexuals. Of course, I am not going to like the government of Iran. Of course, I'm not. But but I tell you things that they don't do in Iran that they do in Saudi Arabia. If you believe the religion of Islam in Saudi Arabia, you're executed. If you're a homosexual, you're executed. They even executed the lady activists that were protesting for the right of women to drive in the country. And I believe that women can drive now in the country, but they sure as hell made an example out of the women that were protesting for the right of women to drive. And what is, here's the United States. What do they want to do? They'll go and sell arms to Saudi Arabia, and Saudi Arabia commits more terrorism against the West than Iran. Saudi Arabia is overseeing a genocide. They're actually contributing to a genocide in Yemen, and the United States just sit there and they're kind of passively complicit in the genocide. So, which pretty much makes the Trump administration war criminals too, for indirectly supporting a genocide in Yemen, down in South America. Uh, am I crazy about the government of Venezuela under Nicolas Maduro? Would I have voted for Maduro if I was a Venezuelan citizen? Probably not. But and for those on the hard left listening to this, don't think that I'm in any way supporting the United States bullying Venezuela around. That's the point I'm trying to make. What the United States is doing right now against the people of Venezuela is criminal. The sanctions and the recognizing somebody who was not elected president. Um, Nicolas Maduro, whether you like him or not, was democratically elected by the people of Venezuela. And for the United States to sit there and to try to make life miserable for Venezuela, this is if they're the empty shelves and the starving bellies and the economic breakdown of Venezuela, it's the United States' fault. And you think the United States are concerned about human rights? Absolutely not. They're concerned about the oil. They want access to that oil. That's what it comes down to. But when it comes to Jair Bolsonaro of Brazil, the United States is like, no big deal. You know who Jair Bolsonaro is? He's a former military officer in Brazil. He is homophobic. He is a Christian supremacist. He have campaigned saying he wants to eliminate 30,000 people from Venezuela. In other words, anybody from the organized left he considered problematic. He wants to be a dictator. He's been involved with a torture program in the military in the past. He is a horrible human being, and he wants to be a dictator. And he and it, I mean, in a way, you can call him. You can you can say that Jair Bolsonaro wants to do to Brazil what would do against the people of Brazil what Augusto Pinochet of Chile did to the people against the people of Chile. Just as you can say that Nicolas Maduro wants to do against the people of Venezuela what Fidel Castro did against his people in Cuba. In other words, they Jair Bolsonaro and Nicolas Maduro, neither of them were dictators because they were democratically elected, but both Maduro and Bolsonaro have authoritarian streaks in them. Again, the United States should not be in the business of interfering in Latin American affairs because the United States doing that just makes the situation worse. I'm getting off subject here, but that's the situation here. The right wing in America loves Bolsonaro, and the left wing loves Maduro. And there's that's where the partisan selective outrage is. Um, the one that's really kind of boggling is the Israeli-Palestinian issue. Now, historically, the left supported Israel in the early years of the country's founding, and even probably to maybe the sometime in the 1970s, you started to see a major shift in the Western left toward Israel, especially with right-wing governments that have been getting elected since the late 70s. But and the right wing in America, and I'm talking about the non-racist right or the non-racial right. I'll put it that way. Those guys did not really have an opinion on Israel until maybe about 1967. Between 1967 and 73, they started to develop a this movement called Christian Zionism. which is a very, very toxic kind of belief system because they talk about love for the Jews, quote unquote, but usually they're interpreted that as eventually they hope that that Iran and Israel toss nukes at each other. That's really what it's all about, and they're just waiting for the second coming, so that the Jews will perish along with everybody else to bring a biblical prophecy as they see it. So I don't necessarily call that love for the Jewish people. And the ironic thing is that most anti-Zionists on the left are not anti-Jewish. In fact, they're the absolute opposite of many of them being Jewish themselves. But the thing is, you compare your typical SJW to your typical Christian Zionists on the right, and you talk about Israel to both people, and they hear my perspective, that they're both go into mental meltdown. It will not compute what I have to say. And for the left, I will tell them the left used to support Israel, and while Israel basically is a social democracy like most European countries, but unfortunately, they have a right wing government that do shitty things to the Palestinians. However, if you look domestically in Israel, do not put the equation of the Palestinian issue in there. They have socialized medicine. They have state run entities. They have strong trade unions, a strong welfare state. There is no death penalty, and it's the safest place in the entire region to be gay or lesbian. Having that said, you talk to the right and you tell them Israel was created as a socialist state by Jewish socialists and Jewish communist Zionists, and for a brief while had a close diplomatic ties with the Soviet Union. And then you tell them about these things, and they go into a meltdown, and they'll tell me I don't know what I'm talking about. And so anyway, I'm just giving you an example of issues here and there where people will not view things logically. And anyhow, let's go back to domestic selective outrage. Um, you compare the Donald Trump presidency to the Barack Obama presidency, and when Obama was president, I'm gonna tell y'all up front, all the Tea Party allegations about Barack Obama being a socialist. I wish that was true. I don't mean just any old socialist. I wish he would have been a socialist in a way that Newt Gingrich accused him of being a socialist. And let me explain. During the fall of 2008, Newt Gingrich was interviewed, I believe, by Sean Hannity, and he asked him if he thinks that Barack Obama is a socialist communist or something like that. And Newt Gingrich was being diplomatic, but he basically said, I think Barack Obama would fit very well in the German Social Democratic Party or the pre-Tony Blair era British Labour Party. Basically, what he was saying is that Barack Obama was a Euro socialist. I wish that was true. I really wish I really wish that when Obama was sworn in, that he would be our American Clement Attlee. I wish he would have been our American Willie Brandt. I wish he would have been our American Olaf Palm. I wish he would have been our um, American Go Whitlam. And if you don't know who some of these names are, please look them up. Uh, Clement Attlee was the Prime Minister of Great Britain. Brought about the National Health Service. Willy Brandt was the Chancellor of Germany. Although the welfare state was in existence when he was in power, um, he was he it expanded under his government. Olaf Palme, of Sweden, who was unfortunately assassinated in I believe 1986. Go Whitlam of Australia. He was the prime minister that brought about Medibank their single payer system in Australia in the 1970s. Anyway, I wish that Barack Obama would have been in more of that type than being just basically a slightly more liberal version of George W. Bush, which is what happened under Obama. But anyway, getting back to Obama, he was not a socialist. He was barely, barely, barely a liberal. He governed to the right of Richard Nixon. But the right wing in this country basically accused Barack Obama of being a socialist, for which he wasn't. He adopted a right wing healthcare plan by the Heritage Foundation, the Affordable Care Act. He didn't adopt Bernie Sanders' approach to healthcare. He adopted the Heritage Foundation approach, Romney Care, Romney Care, Romney Care. It was Romney Care expanded to the other states around the entire country. That's what it was. It was not single payer. Obama chose a conservative Republican plan that they eventually turned against. They were for it before they were against it. So you had this Tea Party movement coming around and and accusing Obama of being a socialist, a communist, or what have you, and and you're having Obama hung in an effigy on news, or having him painted as an African witch doctor, and all these other racist things, and then you go around and you say, some of you anti-Obama people are racist. They'll be like, "How dare you call us racist?" I mean, you're just not that far away from putting a damn white hood on your head. That's how hateful the Tea Party was. On the other hand, when Trump was elected, I wasn't happy about it. It was a very depressing time for me when Trump got elected. Um, I lost some friends because I voted for Jill Stein in that election because of what the Democrats did, fucking Bernie Sanders over. But I saw the left lose it over Trump in the same way that the right lost it over Obama. And so you had the Tea Party replaced by this resistance movement. And so, you had Kathleen Griffin, who was once a good friend of Donald Trump, but because she wanted her career to bolster and nobody paid her any mind, she had this Hollywood props severed head of Donald Trump, you know, as if he's being assassinated or murdered, and so the right wing got outraged, and there were people calling for Kathleen Griffin to be arrested for what? I mean, she didn't kill anybody. I mean, she didn't kill anybody, but hanging Obama in an effigy on a news is okay to these people. But Kathleen Griffin holding a severed head of Trump is just dandy, and I mean, it's just an outrage and awful. Come on now, that's partisanship. That is partisanship of the highest order. And no, I don't condone either action. As I said, I didn't vote for Obama, and I didn't vote for Trump. I vote as I normally vote every year, every 4 years, third party. It's just what I do because usually, um, not usually, pretty much all the time, I oppose any president that's sitting in the Oval Office at the moment. I just pretty much hate every president we ever had. It's just how I am. And I mean, we talk from Nixon to Ford, from Ford to Carter, from Carter to Reagan, from Reagan to Bush 1, from Bush 1 to Clinton, from Clinton to Bush 2, from Bush 2 to Obama, and from Obama to Trump. I pretty much hate every president we ever had, pretty much equally, because every one of them have committed war crimes, with the possible exception of Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter, anything that anything that our military-industrial complex and our CIA did that was shitty under Carter, I really do believe that it would have been worse if he just let it slide by. I think that Carter actually tried to do something about it, and I think Slurp is like why he was a one-term president. But anyhow, I ran it long enough, and I am going to I'm going to head on out of here. If you like what you heard, please press like and tell everybody about this channel. And feel free to subscribe and urge everybody else to subscribe and make this YouTube channel, you know, something to be proud of. That we can all say, hey, we build this together. And I thank each and every one of you who have subscribed to this channel. And take care. Peace.